First off, it's good to be back. I have enjoyed being here with you in the past, and for those of you who may be sitting there going, "He looks familiar," it's just because I am. Though you may be remembering me with a banjo rather than just behind the pulpit. But it is indeed a joy to be with you here while Claire is up in Prince Edward Island. She had hosted my family there a couple summers ago, so I know exactly the beautiful place where she is. Now, with her being in Canada, it does remind me of a story that my father used to tell. I probably still tells it, but I remember it from when I was small. You remember back when there was such a thing as the end of the broadcast day? You know, when the TV and the radio didn't just keep going 24 hours? Well, my father would tell the story of going as a boy himself to a family camp up on Lake Temagami, which is somewhere in Canada. I've never been there. But, you know, they would have the radio playing, and at the end of the broadcast day in Canada, remember, he could never figure out why they would sign off by playing America, which, as you all know, it shares the same tune as some little ditty called God Save the Queen. But to his American ears, to his childhood way of understanding, they were signing off by playing America, which, you know, I think is something that we often do in our own way. And particularly on this 4th of July weekend, we get sucked into that, you know, the world is singing America place. Just yesterday, my son and I, wearing our kilts, attended the Round Hill Highland Games in Norwalk. And after the singing of the Star-Spangled Banner, because there were so many Britannic sorts about, God Save the Queen was the next song sung. And it was kind of interesting because, you know, we're all standing there with our hands over our hearts for the Star-Spangled Banner, and, well, that's not the right position for God Save the Queen. Hold it, we're Americans. Hold it, didn't we fight a war 238 odd years ago? But hold it, aren't they our best allies in the world? But hold it, it makes your head explode sometimes, especially on 4th of July weekend when we gather and we have our red, white, and blue on, we have the flags flying, and we're reminded that we are the greatest nation on earth with the possible exception of every other nation on earth. As our singers sang this morning, my country's skies are bluer than the ocean. In that beautiful song of love of country, but of acknowledgement that we all love our countries, that each one of us is from somewhere, that God is present not only in our land, but that God is indeed present in all lands. Which is a little bit of a digression. That's my little 4th of July stuff popping out of my brain as I'm getting started, because what I really wanted to talk to you about was what happened at the Highland Games, not the music, but the caber toss. Now, do you all know what a caber is? Okay. A traditional Scottish Highland game is the tossing of the caber, where big burly guys will pick up a telephone pole and throw it as far as they can, with the idea of flipping it end over end and having it land straight on. That's the best possible throw. Yeah, I can't pick up a phone pole. Yes, I can. Of course I can pick up a phone pole in my dreams. It's impressive watching these people. And by the way, there were a couple women competing too. You ladies can be pretty tough as well. But there was one particular athlete who was there, and he had shoulders that were just massive. And as he picked up the caber and he heaved it into the air, I thought to myself, oh my, that is just a feat of strength that is unparalleled. Though there are other Scottish Highland games, there's the one where you pick up a rock that's about this big and carry it as far as you can. That's the whole game. Something about the Scots, they're pretty straightforward. Don't need no stinking rules. But I love watching people compete. I love watching that physical exertion. I like it myself, but my knees and my shoulders have gotten to the point where, I try and limit it personally. Several years ago, I was up at the Blandford Fair and was watching the horse draws. Have you ever been to a horse draw or an ox draw where the animals are paired together in their yokes and they're pulling a sled and they keep putting weight on the sled and the horses will take off pulling it until eventually they put enough weight on the horses can't go anymore? And the team that can pull the most is the one that wins. Yeah, we put our animals through the same kind of competition we put ourselves through sometimes. Those yokes that the horses or the oxen wear are really marvelous feats of engineering, though, because they come down around the neck and over the front of the body and across the chest. And when they lean in, they're putting everything they have into that forward motion. It's in perfect contact with their bodies. The yoke is what allows the horse or the ox to really do their best. Yokes. Jesus talked about them when he told his hearers, "My yoke is easy and my burden is light." We don't usually think of people wearing yokes, though every so often we'll see pictures of people with a bar across their shoulders with a water bucket on either side. We've seen that from time to time, but mostly we don't think of people wearing yokes. But we do, don't we? We have things that we're pulling against, things that connect us to the weights in our lives. What's your yoke? What are the things that burden you in your life? For some of us, it's looking towards retirement and wondering if we're going to have enough money to be able to sustain our standard of living. Maybe you're worried about your kids or your grandkids, wondering how they're going to face the world. I know firsthand the stress of having a child who's ready to start college and the dread of those tuition bills any minute now. At the hospital where I work, we just had a round of layoffs of nurses and support staff. There are plenty of things that we carry with us every minute of our lives, weighing us down, perhaps even making our lives a misery. But Jesus spoke of how people had rejected John because of his abstemious ways, how they rejected him because he ate and drank and associated with all the wrong people. And it seemed like for Jesus, he couldn't win. No matter what he did, people wouldn't be satisfied. He quoted the old Hebrew proverb about, "We played the pipes and you wouldn't dance, we mourned and you wouldn't cry." Parenthesis, what's wrong with you people? Right? If people aren't going to respond either way. But Jesus then went on to thank God. To thank God for the ability to give a message. the ability to offer a transformation, the ability to offer peace, even to people who were so wrapped up in themselves that they couldn't understand the joy or the sorrow, who couldn't understand the fasting or the feasting. And he welcomed the people. Come to me, all of you who are weary and carrying a heavy burden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your soul. For my yoke is easy, and my burden is light. What a gift. We're so used to the heavy burdens that we carry that when we hear Jesus offering us an easy burden and a light yoke, we jump at it. Don't we? Jesus promised that ease, promised that lightness. But even when we talk about the joy of discipleship, we need to remember that it comes with cost as well. Jesus promised that his yoke was easy, but that was in comparison with the yokes to which we harness ourselves. He promised that his burden would be light, but he never said that it would be effortless to pull it. Being faithful indeed takes a lot of work. It took a lot of work for Abram's servant to saddle up 10 camels and to lead them to the city of Nahor to find a bride for his master's son, Isaac. It took a lot of work for Rebekah to go down to the cistern to draw out enough water, to quench not only the servant's thirst, but the thirst of 10 camels who had been traipsing across the desert. But that tiring work brought about the answer to God's promise that Abraham would become the father of nations. Our faithfulness brings about the answer to God's promises as well. And it's not just our faithfulness to the church that matters. As we celebrate Independence Day this weekend, we remember the fathers and mothers of our nation who came to a land that was new to them, many of whom came in pursuit of religious liberty. When our Congregationalist ancestors arrived here in the far-off land of New England, they brought the best of their faith with them. But they also brought the worst of their prejudices along, too. They came in pursuit of religious liberty, but then they set up theocracies, denying religious liberty to everyone else. And our ancestors' persecution of others brought about the terrors of the Salem witch trials and the execution of Quakers on Boston Commons. We shouldn't forget that. It was our Congregationalist ancestors who took a stand against the British rule in the Americas, and the colonists who staged the Boston Tea Party came from a meeting at Old South Church in Boston, one of ours. When the British occupied Boston during the Philadelphia during the Revolution, it was the German Reformed people, part of our United Church of Christ, who hid the Liberty Bell in order to prevent it from being melted down to make cannons for the British Army. Our ancestors took their share of the load. They leaned into their yoke, when it came to growing and changing, and our new republic reflected that belief. The belief that all men are created equal, even though at the time all men meant men. Well, if you were white, and if you owned property. But again, our ancestors in faith worked to end slavery through the power of the courts, through the ballot box, and ultimately through the guns of the Union Army. They worked for the passage of the 19th Amendment to the Constitution, giving you ladies the right to vote. Took long enough, didn't it? They, our congregational ancestors, maybe even some of you sitting here today, were part of the civil rights movement, putting faith into action to extend justice once again, over and over. Our ancestors in faith leaned into that yoke, a yoke that needed carrying. They leaned into that yoke to transform our nation, to bring it closer to God's ideal of justice, to build peace and equality, to help our nation become what it needed to be. And we're yoked with them. You know, watching those ox draws up at the Blandford Fair, one thing I noticed is that there was never a single ox pulling. They were always yoked in teams, two of them pulling together, matched in size, matched in strength, because the people who were driving the team knew that if you have one big ox and one little ox, it's not going to work well. Things are going to skew off to the side. You have to pull together. We have to pull together, don't we? We can't say, okay, you go do the justice work. I'm going to just kind of hang here and enjoy communion. You know, that grape juice is awfully good. Nah, doesn't work. We come to the table together. We share in the gifts of God together. We're nourished together. We're strengthened. And then we go out together and we lean into that yoke. We do the work that comes from being God's people. We do the heavy lifting of taking our faith and having it influence our patriotism, rather than the simple and perhaps even backward task of having our patriotism dictate our faith. You know, there's a reason that that sort of unofficial Yale thing, you know, for God, for country, and for Yale. That, by the way, is a definition of anticlimax. Oh, come on, people. But yeah, you know, God, country, Yale. But God comes first. Our faith comes first. It informs our understanding of how we love our country. It informs our understanding of what it means to live as citizens. It informs our understanding of what it means to be neighbors. Let us then take that yoke and wear it. It's a lot lighter than some yokes. And when we pull it together, we can make a difference. May God bless us as we live out our faith in this land today and every day. Amen.